2 for day 3, and we have a fine view of the Royal Yacht Squadron and quite a lot of people spectating here in the afternoon. We've waited for the breeze to settle in. Fiona Campbell has done her magic with the weather, and we now have a nice southwesterly breeze. That's 4 minutes to go for the first start, and that is the Etchell class. Let's have a quick look at what we might have in terms of what's happening the rest of the afternoon. And here we go, the race schedule for the shortened day today, 13:45, quarter to 2 for the Etchells. Then straight into our featured class of the day, the Darings, at 13:50. Then followed up by the Dragons, the Flying 15s, we have the Sonars, the Red Wings, yesterday's choice class to follow, the Solent Sunbeams, that had a tragedy during the week. They lost a sunbeam in some of the rougher weather earlier. The Squibs then at 2, Seaview Mermaids at 2:30, the Victories at 14:35, and finally the biggest fleet in the entire class, in the entire fleet of Cowsweek, and that is, of course, the X1 Designs. So, 3 minutes to go. Where would you be, Oscar, here?
So this is a really interesting one. We're a bit later in the sequence, so the tide at the far end, you can look out there on the left of shot by the red funnel, and the course just coming up here, the Etchells. So a short beat up to Royal Cork. That'll be a challenge up the shore as they beat round the corner. It'll be an interesting leg for them over across the Solent here. They're going to have to cross the tide as they go across. It's going to be a white sail reach, no spinnakers, but a lovely spinnaker run just again across the North Channel here. There's a channel that runs north up to the middle of the picture. They're going to have to cross that again, but running with kites, so that'll be a nice little leg for them this afternoon.
Well, the breeze filling in very nicely now.
It's finally coming to forecast. The Wind Wizard predicted it, and she is completely correct. It has come in, so excellent sailing conditions here on the Solent.
Yep, I think she's taking some praise here now. You take it while you can, Fiona. Take it while you can.
On the days when she's right 100% of the time.
Okay, Etchells to watch for. There's quite a few other classes now making their way out to see what this breeze is doing, as is Matt Sheehan, who's out on the water.
Indeed. That's a bit of a scramble to action, but we're out on the water, and it is beautiful, isn't it? It's picking up just as forecast. Sea breeze coming in. Looking very nice.
It is, yes, and they seem to be favouring sort of your end of the neck of the woods out towards the pin end.
Well, it's understandable. I mean, that's where the commentary is going to be, isn't it?
That's the man in the blue boat. Keep clear of him. Don't do anything nasty near him because he'll commentate to it.
Yes, I'm just getting up to speed with the tidal situation, but actually it's looking interesting. There's not a lot of tide out here. Actually, I'm afraid I missed what you were saying earlier on about the tide inshore, but presumably it's still going to the east where you are.
No, there's a little bit of west now. It was east, but it's just got a bit of a westerly drift now, so I'm pretty sure that it's going to be fairly the same out there, but obviously the skippers and the Etchells think that that's going to be the right place to be. 1 minute to go.
Just as I get out towards this mark, yes, there is still some west going tide out here. Not a lot, actually, probably only about half a knot. But what is interesting when I look down to the west from the pin end of the line is that that's where the solid breeze is. And if you go too far inshore, and I can see that now, there are some really quite tricky little light patches inshore. So I guess it's not much surprise, therefore, that they want to start out at this end of the line.
30 seconds to go then, Oscar, and quite tight at the far end of the line.
As we were looking at yesterday, we started to see this towards the end of the start sequence yesterday. Boats choosing to start towards the pin end of the line to have a nice, clean, long run in. They didn't want to get involved in loads of shenanigans up here on the beach. As Matt quite rightly says, there is tide going from left to right of picture as you look at it here in the middle of the Solent, out where the class is now. But when they come in towards the beach, the tide is turned, and it's actually going from right to left across the screen. But it's a real trade-off, as Matt says. It gets gusty and frosty when you get in, and that's the start. A nice, clean start for the Etchells fleet. 14:09, making an excellent start. You can just see the Hong Kong flag of Jamie McWilliam, 14:07, middle of the picture there. He's not done so well, although class leader at the moment.
11.94 is Manu. That's a nice, clear win for them on starboard tack, away from the line.
They've got beautifully set up. Not having a perfect week, Mano, but nice start for them, a nice way to start their day 3.
14:09 that you identified. Got a very nice start, got their nose out in front, and they're in a little right-handed shift, so they are actually lifted here, but they're being pressed quite hard by 14:17 just behind them. But in the last few seconds, they've got a little lift and they're starting to squeeze them off. So At the moment, I'd say 14.09, and the one you had just mentioned before, which I've forgotten,
94 Mano.
Mano, it's all right, just getting myself out of the way of the boat that was behind.
14.90, that's no dramas on the...
Nicely set up here, but in that drone shot a second ago, we could see there was two really distinct schools of thought. We've got 3/4 of the fleet here up on the top of the screen, and they're all taking that clean starboard run in. They're going to go a long way to the beach. But 11.94 at the bottom of the screen here, they're choosing to come in earlier, get out of the tide earlier, but now you see they're going to have to tack back, find a lane with all those starboard tackers, and 11.94 mid-shot here having to take a lot of transoms as they duck to get back out, looking for that more pressure that Matt was talking about a second ago.
Yeah, that's Mano just trying to thread its way through. It's going to have to do a big hard duck here.
Going to have to do a tack in underneath. Look,
no, that
Lee bow them as they go. Nice tack there. Just trying to create themselves a lane to come back into the beach because they don't want to end up all the way out in the tide here.
Well, they bounced out 14.07, the Hong Kong boat, just as you were talking it through there, so job done by them. But actually, for Jamie McWilliam, I'm not sure that wasn't such a bad thing anyway, because actually out here, there's a nice bit of breeze in the middle of this track. You just don't want to go too far to the north, I think.
Further north, so we've got that big channel that runs up the middle of the Solent, which is just left of picture there, and that's going to have the worst of the negative tide in it. But as you say, not a huge amount of tide affecting the inside. On board with the Plant Hunter, Malcolm here. Looks nicely set up, crew hiking out. 4 up for Malcolm this week, which is usually Etchells sail with 3, but sometimes we see them with a 4th crew member to get on the weight. Etchells having a strict weight limit.
very much so. Well, go on, Matt.
I quite like where he is, actually.
Yes, I was going to say.
Plant Hunter out here, out on the right. It's difficult to get a perspective unless you had a really wide shot, but it is a bit of a gamble being this far out to the north. But as you say, there's not a lot of tide out here, and he's got clear air, and I don't know, well, if he did tack over, maybe the rest of the fleet would be in front of him, actually, now, looking at it. Maybe it's not such a good place to be.
Talking to the Plant Hunter last night, they've had a difficult start to their regatta. Day 1, they thought they were over the line, came back. Yesterday, they thought they were safe and were over the line by about 4 feet and got disqualified. So they've had a challenging regatta, and I imagine they're rolling the dice today, looking for something special.
Yeah, they've just rolled the dice by tacking, well, not rolled the dice, but they've tried to have a little look at where they might sit by tacking over onto starboard. And unfortunately, I think that the view might not be what they were looking for, because I think quite a large part of the fleet is going to roll past them on port.
Well, that was good, and nice to see the Etchells well underway. We have to wait to later in the day to find out if that paid off for them, staying in the middle of the tide and where the breeze is better, because we're coming back for the Darings, which are our featured class of the day. The Darings very much a cows-based fleet. Nice big spinnaker on them with a proper pole. And here is their course, again going down to Royal Cork, not too far to windward, then a nice reach over to the mainland, a little bit of Hillhead, Jane and Contessa 32 class buoys knitting and heading back to the finish off of the Shrape, which is not the squadron but off the Shrape. Here they are with just about a minute to go.
Bit of a shorter course, as we said earlier in the programme. We haven't got quite so much time this afternoon because of the delayed start, so everyone having a slightly compressed race this afternoon, but getting quite nicely lined up here. You can see 36 and 14 top left of screen here. They're getting quite early for this start. Got 43 seconds to go. You'll probably see them easing jibs a minute. In fact, you can see them bearing away towards the camera. They're just a little bit early. They're going to get back down towards 23, middle of shot, get into the pack, and then come back up looking for a nice clean lane.
They certainly want to be out in that tide, don't they? They've watched the start of the Etchells, and that's where they're choosing.
Shot here. Look at them bounce up. They're trying to get above 23, who's sailing down the line towards the Royal Yacht Squadron, where we're standing with the camera. And there is the line.
Yes, there's the shot of the line with 14 seconds to go.
Now 14 here looks like they really need to sheet on. They're quite a long way back, just in that middle right of picture. They're quite nicely bow forward with the boats around them, but unless they can get some pace on, as 13, I believe, sheets on nicely.
Oh,
Individual
recall.
Looks like 36, who's out left of picture there. They might have been over. I can't quite see. 37 is on their hip to weather, so not ideal starts for them. 37 debutante. They're third overall at the moment in this class, so if they have to go back, that's going to hurt their chances today.
So that's Dolphin, number 15, out in front. 14 just tucked in to their leeward, Dancer.
Beautiful classic boats, these, although a little bit more jib tension on 14. People
Yes.
looking for setting up for different conditions. Obviously tighter jib tension as the breeze builds, but a little bit more power as you ease that jib halyard in the light stuff. So Crews looking at different setups, trying to get the most out of the conditions.
Well, they're all pushing in on starboard at the moment. Who's going to be tacking first to try and thread their way through? Well, here goes one in the middle of the fleet. Not too sure about number 24. That's at Daring Do, down the bottom right of our screen. They've got a lot of threading through there to go.
So I think number 11 that we've just seen tack in the middle of the screen there was more about trying to clear their air. I think they were all going about the right direction. They all want to come into the beach a bit more. But sat in all that dirty air of the boats in front of them, they really couldn't get up to pace and had no other choice but to tack over.
Now, Giles Peckham, who is ashore with a damaged knee, is their coach on Dauntless and a leading boat and won last time round. I wonder how he's watching this particular race and what coaching tips he would give. We'll hear from him this evening on Cowes, or today at Cowes. And that's Dynamite.
Yes, Giles, an instrumental part of that team from last year, and I'm sure gutted to not be on the boat, as you'll say, hear from him later. But they're lying second overall after a dominant victory in 2021, so not quite the first 2 days of Cowes Week they were hoping for, but still plenty of time left in this regatta to make up for it.
What's it like on the far side out towards the middle of the Solent, Matt?
Well, the interesting thing is that boat number 36, which I've got a funny feeling, as Oscar was saying, was OCS at the start and didn't go back, but at the moment they're in a very nice position. They're actually, I'd say, leading this fleet at the moment. They've got a nice little lift, and they're able to sail down that main bit of the sort of freeway, if you like, out towards Gurnard, and they're in a very nice position indeed. Unfortunately, it may all turn out to be for nothing, because I noticed that the individual recall flag is still flying, and Dauntless did go back. So whoever didn't, and if it was 36, it's going to be a difficult day to come back to.
You're definitely better to be safe than sorry at Cowes Week. It can be a long afternoon after 3 hours of racing to suddenly find that you're OCS. So I'm surprised that they didn't go back if they thought it was marginal.
I don't think they could see anything, actually, Oscar. I think that was the thing. They had 2 or 3 boats right below them, and I don't think that they could see the line or indeed the flags.
So 15's coming back in. That's Dolphin on starboard tack. Now here's Dauntless, we were talking about earlier.
Nicely settled. The breeze, you can see, beautiful in the Western Solent there, and you can just see, we've talked about this a lot this week, Medallia, the round the world boat, pointing to the left of picture. So the tide's still running from left to right out by the shore there. Medallia moored quite inshore.
Yeah, Dauntless tacking to stay out in that tide and stay away from the dirty air from the other boats, but they're not in the leading position at the moment. If Giles is watching, I'm sure he'll be on the phone. He's not allowed to.
Sparkling pictures as they come up towards Egypt Point there. You've got 29 at the bottom of shot. Look, they're having to bear away. Look at the amount of distance they're losing. They're going to stick the helm over in a second and try and bring the bow back up again, try and lose some of that distance. But having to duck boats on starboard as they cross you can be really painful as the race unfolds, getting out of that port tack position. What
a great shot that is of Doublet and the rest of the fleet all going in on starboard towards Egypt Point, or just past Egypt Point now. 4 minutes to go for the next start. 1 minute to go for the next start. What am I talking about? And we're on to Dragons now. So let's go back to look at Dragons coming up in some 45 seconds time.
This is a really interesting class. You can see the only blue-hulled Dragon in the middle of shot. Oh, just as we bring the course up. A very similar course to what we've just seen with the other classes. A short beat round the headland down to Royal Cork, and then a nice fetch across the Solent. That'll be a tricky one for Dragons. They're not great fetching boats, but they'll have a nice spinnaker run down the mainland shore there, so that'll be good. Just saying, you can just see the bow of the Blue Dragon, middle of picture here, the bow sticking out the backside of 761, sorry. That is, what's my notes?
761 Jerboa.
Yes, Jerboa, but Bluebell, I
yes.
believe, in the middle. They had a completely dominant run last year. We're going to have a nice start here, although they're a little bit put under pressure. You can see them being squeezed down the line by the boat. 763, I believe.
All clear, so a good
start for them.
Cracking start for the boat at the far side from where we can't quite identify her. I don't know if you can see who that was, Matt.
Sorry, say again.
The lead boat off the start line for the Dragons.
So 763, nicely set up to weather there. 761.
Bertie.
Beautiful start for Bertie. Really nicely on the line, about a couple of meters back from it just as the gun went, and they look really nicely positioned, leading the fleet in back towards the island shore, back towards Egypt Point, just in front of them.
The interesting thing is that meanwhile, out at the pin end, Graham Bailey on Blue Bottle on 192 ducked all the sterns of the Dragon fleet to come out on port tack, just sliced past the pin end, and seems very happy to take this northern side of the course, which is quite interesting. We haven't seen anybody come out this way yet.
His knowledge of the Solent is quite extensive, isn't it? So I'd be interested to see what he does. He's still carrying on the port tack, as you say, out into the tidal stream. Great boat speed he had yesterday, if you remember right, watching them coming along the shore here.
Yeah,
Great
they were
boat
absolutely
speed.
ripping up the shore, but not his regatta, as I was saying before. He last year won this with nearly a clean sweep, and not actually in the top 3 right now in the Dragon class. So got a bit of catching up to do with Graham Bailey.
I think he may well have got himself a bit buried on the start line. I didn't see their pre-start, but I suspect he might have got himself a bit buried and just had to get out into clear air, because he's now tacked back over onto starboard and he's heading back towards where we'd expect him to be heading, down to the middle of his track out to the west.
Very much so. 682. We've got a nice close-up shot of 682. That's ecstatic.
Second in class at the moment, so they're having a great regatta, and Bertie there, who won the start, also leading the class, so a commanding performance by them in this Cows Week.
There is a huge lift down on the beach, by the way. There's 3 boats, 777, and I can't see the other 2 numbers, but going down the beach, they're on a huge, great big starboard lift compared to the boats further offshore.
777 being furious on the beach, so I'm sure they won't be furious. I'm sure they'll be delighted with a big lift as they get into the beach.
They will, because they're probably 10 or 15 boat lengths in front of Blue Bottle.
Don't really want to lift in that position, because you're going to be forced to tack onto port in a minute and not pointing so high. What you get, you lose the next time round.
Yeah, they'll be going in there and hoping for the header as they get closer in.
You can see them coming right up to the beach to get... well, I'm not sure you're going to gain much here. Tide is behind you, so there's no real advantage for smashing all the way to the beach here.
No, I think they may well have felt that they were forced in there, because they're on such a big lift. As Steve says, they didn't dare tack over onto port because they come out on a big header, so they were gambling on the fact that they'd be able to go in, get the header close to the beach and come out on port. But as you say, Oscar, the trouble is it leads you into an area that is less favourable on the tidal front.
And you can see they haven't had a wonderful tack there, the weather boat. They've got nice clean air as they come off the shore, but it's going to be gusty and fluky coming around this headland. You're not going to be as settled as some of the boats offshore, and you can actually see the gap here separating the two. 761 losing distance to 763 in front of them. You can see that gap growing all the time as we look at it.
Actually, 763 now looks like they're going to be clearly in front of everybody else. They're leading this race.
Well, that's Bertie, and what finally, Blue Bottle, how they get on, Matt? They're tacking back in towards the shore.
Yes, they tacked in. Well, they haven't gone all the way in. They then decided to tack back out, and they're just trying to make it work by staying offshore, keep sailing their own race, keeping in clear air, but they're just not in the strongest bit of the tide, and it's not really working for them.
Okay, we're going to come back to the start line now, because it's Flying 15s, the Cowes-based class. Most of them to be found at the Cowes Corinthian Yacht Club, farther up the Medina, and counting down to their 1 minute.
Usually a very competitive start this, so it'll be interesting to see as they jostle for position. In fact, a couple of boats already getting lined up. 3819 there, just maybe look like they're lining up too early, in fact.
Flashback.
There we go, just starting to come into sequence. Everyone's starting to get onto that starboard tack. They're going to be looking for a nice clean run. Nice shots there, the close-ups. You can see how low freeboard these boats were, and so they will have been having an absolute soaking wet time yesterday, but today much better conditions, much flatter.
And there they are, right out at the pin end of the line, just jibs flogging, wanting to stay back. Someone just going to throw a tack in. That's a bit late to throw a tack to get back round to that pin end.
It's very late, and they're going to have to pull a big wear-away left of shot here. You can see them doing the jibe now. They can still get this right if they can find a gap or get above the boats on the left of shot here. There's a gap you can see between the pin end, and that's them coming back in with the flapping jib. Furthest boat to the left.
There's the start.
And there is an individual recall for this fleet. 3619, 3819, I believe.
3819 for flashback.
For flashback, lying third overall in this class at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see who thinks they're over, if anyone is going to come back. You can see a boat tacking just at the back of shot there. No one looks like they're going to come back, so it'll be interesting to see end results, who actually was over. Flashback leading away nicely there. Look how settled they are on the bottom left of picture. Really nicely plugging along, nicely powered up.
But being held back by 3969 cruise missile.
Yeah, they're going to get a bit pushed out to the left side of the screen here, going all the way into the island shore until they can create a big enough gap to tack over. We're just losing a boat tacked at the back off the right-hand side of shot there. So it looks like they're creating a little bit of a gap. Yes, the boat behind them now tacked off, creating a lane for them if they want to tack. It's 3819, this middle boat left of picture.
Yep, flashback. But Matt, you've got that port tacker just by you.
Yes, I think it's interesting. It's another one. There's a few people being teased out towards this northern side of the racecourse, and I think they looked at it and thought, oh, there's an opportunity. I think they're going to discover it's actually not what it might look like, and they're not doing so well. In fact, they're on a header going out on port, so I don't think that's going to work for them.
Okay, Over the Moon is heading in to the coast here, the shore of by Egypt Point. See from our camera boat. Thank you, Karina, down there. That's the boat just going into attack now, onto port, and I think they're going to duck most of the fleet there because
I think that they'll get away with this because it's a slightly smaller fleet. They've got this one starboard tacker coming across the middle of picture here, so they're going to have to probably duck them. But after that, they've got a nice big lane. Quite see it in drone. Are they going to get? Yeah, seen how having to pull the helm up just to let that starboard tacker cross without losing too much speed. They do a nice job of it. You can just see in the trail, the wake behind the boat, you can see the curve forming as they've had to pull the helm up to get behind them.
Oh, someone just squeaked through there. And there's another class just getting in amongst the Flying 15s.
Great little boats, Flying 15s. They're going to have a lovely run. They will get up and playing when the breeze is building. Not quite enough breeze probably to have them fully ripping this afternoon, but with their spinnakers up down the mainland shore, they're going to have a great afternoon here on Solent.
They were the first.
Riffraff.
They were the first planing keel boats. That's what made them famous when they were designed 75 years ago. There's a bit of useless information for you.
Great fun to sail still. Even
Yeah.
even 75 years later, a fantastic boat.
Yes, it's their anniversary this year. I was told. I was actually at the Cowes Corinthian today and talking to some of them up there, and I would love to do, just putting it out there, love to do Cowes Week in the Flying 15.
Wild Affair we have here, 3421.
Yes, they were the ones who came all the way out to the northern side of the racecourse in the hope they'd find a big gain there. It hasn't worked out for them, but on the other hand, they haven't lost out a massive amount either. I'm quite surprised to see that, actually. I think they've come back in on starboard tack on quite a decent lift, and that's brought them back into the pack. But it is only bringing them back into the gaggle. It hasn't delivered what I think they'd hoped for at the start.
Well, 3819 we have, that's a flashback that was doing quite well at the start, and 4090 fabulous on our right of our screen.
Is Rupert Manders, but that's Men Behaving Badly, isn't it, I think?
Men Behaving Badly are 3779, currently leading the class.
Yeah.
Can't see them on our shot though, but
No, I can't see them on the water. I was looking for them because they're... Oh, yes, I can. There we go. They're up by Gernard Buoy, and they're on starboard, and they have taken this more northern route, but not quite as extreme as some of the others, and they're looking in pretty good shape. They're not actually leading, but they're probably in the top 4.
Okay, nice. I mean, they've had a very consistent couple of days, so I'm sure they're looking for an extra to continue that consistent streak and keeping top points coming in. Last year didn't finish outside the top 4, so definitely one to watch in the Flying 15 class.
And they've won this class several times during Cowes Week. They've actually, I've got a feeling they were actually won Cowes Week overall in White Group one year.
Right, time to come back to another class here on the start line now, and we're moving to sonars. So here they are on the start line, and the sonar has an odd sort of insignia for a sail, doesn't it, at the top of their mainsail, sort of graduated lines.
They've got just over 5 minutes to go. So again, sonar class, quite a smaller class here at Cowes Week this year, but a very good competitive racing. It's been used all over the world, and quite competitive yesterday, even in the breezy conditions, although some of them had some problems as they came down the last spinnaker run down to the Royal Yacht Squadron yesterday afternoon. Quite a few wrapped spinnakers round headstays, so I'm sure they won't be upset for a little bit less breeze today to get themselves up and running. The leader of this class, Jenny 737, having a nice start to their week, and 613 in the middle of shot there we were just looking at, third in class. Well,
whilst we got a bit of time, we just brought Fiona out of her cup of tea and looking at her screen to update us on what's happened with the weather. Fiona.
Yes, well, I was looking at the screen because those in the eastern Solent are slightly struggling at the moment with getting this southwesterly to settle down. They've got a little bit of south-southeasterly that's coming up the eastern Solent. All the weather observations across the island have gone southwesterly, so we're holding steady and just giving it a few more minutes to get across there. Obviously, we'll keep an eye on that. On the off chance the southeasterly holds, then we'll maybe rethink. But on the whole, it's the southwesterly that's going to stay with us. It's looking pretty nice, isn't it? Pretty stable in the central and western areas. Wind speeds of around sort of 10 to 13 knots, picking up later 13 to 16, I hope.
It's very good, and came in exactly as you predicted.
Yeah, it's nice when it comes together, isn't it? I'm glad it's gradient, not pure sea breeze. We might have struggled a little more, but yes, very happy.
Okay, thank you, Fiona Campbell, for the update on the weather. We'll have to hear that a little bit more later on. But Matt, what do you see out on your water for wind? No, he's doing something.
Doing something, but in the middle of the screen here we've got Herbicus 613. I was just saying a minute ago, third in class, having a good regatta. You can see them getting themselves prepped. The Bowen there looking like he's getting his jacket sorted out. So they're going to have a bit of a wet ride as they go up the western Solent. Hopefully we'll see their course shortly and then we can find out where they're going. But they're bound to go out to the west to a short beat, similar to what we've seen with other classes.
We've got just half a minute, I think, to talk about the change in guardship that we've seen today, because the previous guardship has left, and now just to the right of the start line we see a more naval kind of looking ship, and it's HMS 7, I believe.
Yes, indeed, and she's here, I believe, for the rest of the week, so it's great to have her on station. Miscreant here, again, settled in, slightly deeper boats. You can see nice deep cockpits. Really accessible fleet, the sonar class, so it's great to have so many boats out here this week.
Yep, there's Dolphin.
Quite competitive. You can see them already starting to bunch at the far end. We've got just 2.5 minutes to go, and there's our naval ship on standby for us, so excellent to have them just in the process of docking here at the Solent.
HMS 7, and yep, good to see them here. Nice to have a guard ship. It's part of Cowes Week, isn't it? In the past, we've had, of course, HMS Britannia, the Queen's ship, as it were. But yep, very nice to have a naval presence here. Okay, 1 minute 50 to the start, Matt, and we're looking forward to the sonars. Very popular training boats as well as family boats, if you like.
Yeah, well, they've been very competitive, a very competitive fleet across able and Paralympic sailors, and very popular indeed. And it is pretty close racing as well. I was talking to the crew of Bertie last night.
Just to interrupt, Matt, so we've got the course for them finally, and they're going down to Royal Cork, same as the rest of the fleet, over to the mainland and back towards Data Bank and to the finish line. You were saying?
Oh, I was just saying that I was talking to the crew of Bertie last night. I think we spoke to them last year as well, but anyway, they were reminding me just how closely fought some of the racing is in this fleet.
Yep, it is.
One design class, I believe, as we were talking about, so everything's the same boat to boat, and it's really the sailor that makes the difference, which makes it really tightly fought, especially the starts. Small gains at the start line here can make a big difference to your beat, getting clear air, getting a gap. So you expect to see them fighting. You see top left of the picture, most of the fleet bunching up towards that pin end. Just 602 down on their lonesome down here, halfway bottom right of screen as we look. Few boats making their way this way now. Be interesting to see, because you could probably get away with a port tack flyer at the pin end based on the last couple of starts we've seen.
You might want to as well, because there's such a gaggle here. It's 582 and 578 both realised that they were living life dangerously trying to barge their way in at the pin end, but there's 5 or 6 boats all trying to get in to this pin end, and they're being swept onto it by the tide. That was
in fact, you can just see there 5, 7, 8 left of picture,
bounced off it.
bouncing off the pin end.
Yes, that's not entirely legal.
It's important to remember as well, just whilst looking at this, that the pin can move, and the exact start line is the lights on the squadron rather than the pin. That's a general recall. The sonar fleet very overzealous.
General recall.
That was a very good point you made, Oscar, among many, obviously, but about where the pin end is, because I've just been having a look at it, and of course it's on an anchor, and so it's affected by the tide, and it's sweeping down to the west. So it is about 3 or 4 boat lengths ahead of the line. So you're absolutely right. Anybody who thought that marked the end of their line was already over the line, which was a good 5 or 6 boats, if not more.
I think most of the fleet there getting that slightly wrong. It's certainly from our position here, it looked very early for most boats, and I think a bit like a speeding ticket here, you can request if you're not sure you're over, and I had to deliver the fateful ticket to somebody last night to show they were 4 feet the wrong side of the line, and they had to unfortunately bite their tongue and accept the decision of the race committee. All stood here. They have the official information, and their word is final. So,
Bet you were popular.
yes, I didn't go down well in the bar last night, but such is the job.
Don't shoot the messenger is the answer.
So the sonar fleet now are going to have to re-stack up, and they're going to have to re-evaluate their starting sequence, because that clearly didn't work. As Matt said, lots of boats late and trying to force their way in at the pin with 15 to 20 seconds to go, which actually isn't a great place to be because you have very few options.
I'm just sitting right on the line right now with the bottom transits gone out, and that is at least 2 boat lengths, possibly a little bit more. There we are, right on the line now. So that buoy is well advanced, and the other thing that's noticeable on the pin end is how much the tide has increased in the last half hour. There's a good knot and a half. Yeah, actually might even be 2 knots actually on the end of that mark. So you've got to hang back from this line if you're not going to ruin your day before it started, that's for sure.
Definitely, and more, as we were saying before, with maybe wanting to start on port tack if you can, or finding an early lane, you know, having a nice clean start with no one above you on starboard, and having the option to flip back out, get a little bit into deeper water, get into the better tide earlier in the beat, because actually hammering along the shore isn't going to give you wonderful results at this point.
It's interesting, I was having a rather philosophical discussion with Ian Walker this morning over our coffee, and about starting techniques and the power of starting on port. And we always think that it's better to start on starboard, but that is Ian Walker, the Olympic medalist, round the world sailor, and America's Cup skipper and general rock star, he admitted to me, he was saying, no, he said, that is my preferred, the pin end is my preferred end of the line, and I'm always prepared to start on port. And he made a very good point. He said, packs of boats don't go quickly. I thought, yeah, that's a good way of thinking of it. That'll make you feel better about breaking free from the pack.
When you can get it right, it is a rock star move. It's just bringing those pieces together, isn't it, to get cleanly off on a port tack start.
Well, I think you've got to be prepared to take the transoms. I mean, obviously in a fleet of 100 boats, there's going to be an awful lot of transoms to take, and then it's not necessarily going to work. But in a modest fleet of 20 boats or something like that, so long as they're all tightly grouped, you don't lose an awful lot. Plus, as you bear away to go under the sterns of the other boats, you're accelerating. So you're actually giving yourself a slingshot effect by the time you come out the other side. Whereas the boats that are all fighting in the pack are squeezing and trying to go high and slowing themselves down and shouting at each other and generally getting distracted. And I think it's maybe no surprise that port tack start, or not often, can pay dividends.
So we're starting to get back up to speed here. The boat's milling around, trying to probably work out where exactly that line is, as Matt very kindly for us drove down the line to work out where it was. So it's quite a long way back from the yellow mark that we can see left of screen here. About 2 boat lengths, somewhere where that little sonar is, between the Red Wing and the sonar left of picture. So quite a lot of boats going to have to hang back.
1 minute to the warning signal for sonars, Mark II. As the general recall X flag comes down.
Now what'll be interesting to see is how the other classes, you can see the other boats getting mixed in now, as boats expecting to have their start sequence is all going to be pushed back a little bit. It's going to become quite busy. You can see the Red Wing fleet coming from left of picture, starting to sail down through the start line.
Thinking it's their 5-minute gun, yes.
Probably think it's there, yeah, exactly. So you're going to have to be a bit careful here if you're a sonar. You'll line up and you've got to find a gap with other boats coming through your start line. It's one of those classic Cowsweek challenges.
Well, they all seem to want that pin end even more this time round. Look at them all out there.
In fact, you can see the boats bearing away. The sonar's just to the right of the yellow mark on left of picture here, just sitting, bearing away into the tide as they're being swept down. And you can see this sonar pointing towards us, the tide pushing it from right to left of screen.
It's such a risky strategy, though, putting all your hopes into getting around that, taking that pin end at the extreme. On a risk-reward basis, I'd say it's not worth it unless you can get your timing absolutely spot on and know you're going to be there. I would much prefer to be starting a third of the way in from the pin end, but in clear air, so I can accelerate, put the bow down, accelerate when I want to, go fast for the first 30 seconds in towards the shore, but not that close to shore, then tack over on port and see where it ends up after that. But I just think chancing it on the pin end, the chances of it coming off for you.
We've been talking about the fact that it's going to be a short and a sort of compressed race this afternoon, but it should reiterate that it's still going to be a 2.5-hour race. So a little bit, as Matt says, a little bit of gain on the start, it isn't going to make much difference by the time you come to the turning mark all the way over on the mainland shore. You'll have been sailing for an hour and a half, and any marginal gain from that start isn't going to make much difference by that point.
Well, that's Biscuit we were just looking at there, 5.62, and with 4 minutes to go, they're a long way on the wrong side of the course at the moment.
To say the fleet spread all over the place as they try and decide where they want to be. I think we're going to see that bundle again, as you say, lots of people doing loops up and around the pin end. You can see a boat turning middle of screen here. People going out and doing short runs back in. They all want to stay near that pin. I think we're going to see another bundle for the pin end.
Yeah, pretty sure that's what's going to happen. There's now quite a lot of boats making the right way across the line.
Some boats here getting to the left of the yellow mark on screen. You can see them having to come back.
Yes.
It's a bit dangerous because you're starting to get yourself down tide. They've still got 3 minutes, but generally you'd want to stay to the right of the picture as we look at it, stay up tide at the start line and try and time your run in.
Yeah, they're also, I mean, as you say, Oscar, you don't want to get down tide of it, because when you bear away and try and get back, you're sailing even further downwind, and not really very quickly either, as 562 is discovering, as they have got themselves a little bit too far down tide. 749 is about to discover the same thing as well, but as you say, they have at least got time on their side, but they do need to get themselves back properly behind the line. And
the real danger there is you don't get the options as you line up. So we know they're going to be competitive based on the fact they just had a general recall, but with 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes to go, you can see people starting to think about where they want to be, what a lane might look like for them, and if you're not in and around that area when those lanes start to form, you're going to find you really struggle within the 1 minute sequence to dive in. You know, as you pointed out, Matt, in the 1 minute to go in the previous start, 5 boats trying to barge in at the pin end, never going to work.
I wonder if anyone's going to do a walker then.
Well, I was just thinking that. I mean, there's 582 who's halfway down the line. Just tacker. I don't know how they've been doing this week, but that's sort of where I'd quite like to be. I'd be setting up around there. Keep the clear air.
It's certainly quite clear air down this end, that's for sure. Everyone out on the pin end.
724 there, 30 middle of shot. Second in class at the moment, so should expect to see them in about the right spot, but could get sucked into having that scrum at the pin end, a bit like last time. So it'll be interesting to see if they go for a clean start to keep their week alive, or whether they're going to risk it all, as Matt says.
Yeah, it's going to take quite a bit of clever timing here, because then virtually all boats are running downwind here, nothing on the wind. When do you turn and head for the line with the tide underneath you, sweeping you across? And this time round, you know, general recalls are pretty tight after the first one. You'll get disqualified.
So from their position, as we look at it, the pin marker is not that far off the left of screen as we're looking at them out from the commentary position. And really, I think from there, you wouldn't want to be turning any sooner than 25 to 30 seconds to go, because less than 25 seconds to go, you're going to be swept by the tide straight over that start line. In fact, you can see boats here, 614, jibing in the middle of shot, trying to stay up tide, trying to stay the right side and not get too close with 43 seconds to go.
Here's the pin end mark on the far left of the screen, as you can see, and they are now a little bit more shy of the line. I think they've learnt the lesson.
Very shy now. In fact, everyone's still going away from the start line with 30 seconds to go. We should start to see them making their turns now. Any time now, you would think. 25 seconds, yes, you can see the boats coming around, 560, but conservative turning for them. No one wants to be that close to it.
Ooh, 699, you're going to be in trouble. Discard there, being pushed towards the line. They're on the line now.
Yeah, I think 699 still thinks it's the mark. With 5 seconds to go, they're well over even the mark. There's still going to be some individual recalls at least. Definitely. 699 know they're over in left of shot. You can see them just with all the sails passing them by as they pair away. Oh, that's going to be so painful for them.
Yeah, can't get back. 699, there they are. They're still trying to get back from the front end of the fleet.
The boat that really shot out of that is 602. I think that's my favourite out of that start. They started a third of the way down the line. They're in clear air. They weren't troubled at all. They were able to accelerate in the closing few seconds, and they're just going quickly, pointing high. They're in a very nice position.
That's Andy Castle's foundation.
724 is Burton in class at the moment, so they got off cleanly. Bit to leeward, as Matt was saying, nice position in the start sequence there, but just went for a clean start. Not the most close to the pin, but nicely set up as they go.
Good turnout in the sonar fleet, wasn't there?
Lovely, and the whole fleet here making their way in towards the island shore. You'd expect them to attack out a little bit earlier than we've seen previously. You know, I'd be surprised if they come all the way to the beach here.
Sorry, Oscar.
Go ahead, Matt.
Well, this is such, I was just going to say, I'm not quite sure what pictures you've got, but this is such a good example in the middle of the fleet as to why fighting for that pin end is just not worth it, because everybody behind 560, 602 and 747 and possibly, are all sailing in each other's dirt. So they were fighting and scrapping at that end for what they thought was an advantage, and all they're doing is getting in each other's way, and they're letting the leaders who went for 602, who went for a nice clear air start, to just romp away with it.
602 just tacking here on the shore. They've come in further than I thought they might, but nice tack for them. They're going to have to take a few transoms. Looks like they're going to thread the needle between these four boats coming across. Now they could get bumped here. See, they're going to take the first transom, and they might just cross again.
I think they'll cross 613, and I think they're happy to go behind 582. And because they're, once again, they may have taken some transoms, but they're in clear air. They can decide when they want to tack. They're all in the strongest bit of the tide, and as we've said before, there's no massive benefit in going into the shore.
And we just saw one of the sonars there with the tide sweeping them down towards one of the trot mooring buoys, the bright orange buoys, having to pull the helm up, trying to keep the boat away from actually touching. And I think they might have just clipped it there. But you can see the power of the tide in the Solent sweeping the boats down. Just tacking here on the shore as they get set up. Trying to keep the power on here. You'll be looking for them probably trying to power up. There's a bit of sea state. They're quite wide-bowed boats, so they're going to want to punch through that as they get towards Egypt Point.
Yeah, they're all tacking on port now.
It's been quite light wind this morning, but wind over tide at the moment, don't forget. So as the breeze builds this afternoon, we'll get a couple of hours and a bit of chop will start to rise. So it'll get choppier as the afternoon goes on.
And it certainly is out. I'm just out by the Gurnard buoy, which is just off Egypt Point, and it's noticeably breezier. And I'm sure it's not the breeze has picked up, the tide has picked up out here, and it accelerates around the headland, and it makes it feel quite breezy.
Definitely at this point of tide, you'd be looking to get into that deeper water, getting pushed out. It's going to start absolutely slooshing down, and it's going to be a long spinnaker run against the tide when they make the turn up here, all the way back down to the mainland shore.
This is Jenny on our right.
Jenny class leader so far this week, having a really good week. The first 2 days went well for them. They seem to go well in the moderate conditions of Saturday, and then yesterday's fruity conditions in the Eastern Solent.
What sail numbers, Jenny?
Jenny is 737.
Oh yes, got them. Yep, they're in a nice position as well. But I mean, in the last few minutes, 602, having taken those transoms coming out from the shore, have just carried on port. They've also influenced the rest of the fleet, and they've almost had a calming effect on the rest of the fleet. And they're all now just heading out on port tack. But 602, I'd say, are leading this field now.
Okay, under a minute to go for the start of Red Wings, our featured class yesterday. Enjoyable to watch. They had one or two little incidents out on the water, but lots of Red Wings coming up, celebrating their 125th anniversary.
You can see with 40 seconds to go, boat number 46, Enigma, class leader here, nicely positioned. They've learned from the sonar start. They're going to have a start mid-line by the look of it, try and keep clear air, just get out in front, poke their nose out and get off and have a good afternoon's racing.
Yeah, totally different approach here by the entire fleet, but they're a long way short of the line, so they obviously watch those sonars being crossed over the line and are holding back.
They're a long way short of the line, but look at the land behind them. They're getting swept from right to left across the screen with 10 seconds to go. They're going to be a bang on this line when this gun goes in 6 seconds' time. In fact, a couple of the boats think they're going to be a bit early.
Oh, they're pushing up.
Away. Individual recall can only have been by inches.
Yes. Great start by the Red Wings. The very tall, slender rigs on these boats, no spinnakers.
Now the question is, do we see someone bail out from that pack? Yes, we see the jib flapping, middle of picture here. Somebody is definitely going back. They think it was them who was OCS. 41, I believe. Can't quite read the sail number.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
So that's not quite where they wanted to start, but in their defence, that can only have been by inches, and that was the tide we saw in that last picture, sweeping them down across to the start line.
Yes.
46.
46.
Boats of weather and ahead on the left side of picture there, going nicely. Current class leader. They got a really clean start there, exactly like we thought they might. Well positioned.
Yeah, it was a cracking start actually, just showing how a little bit of clear wind and you can add boat lengths to your position.
Nicely set up, but you can see on the right of shot here, boat 30, boat 47, they're going to be struggling for clear air as all of the dirt comes off the boats in front of them. So not a wonderful start for them. And in the right of picture now, you've got these 3 boats on the right side of the screen, really struggling. There's lots of dirty air coming off the boats to weather them, and they'll be thinking about tacking back out.
That's interesting. I mean, they're looking. I'm just slightly upwind, up course side of the fleet, and there are 2 places you really don't want to be, where you were describing in the dirty air, and also further out to the north. At the moment, you cannot afford to go out on port early. It doesn't work. They're definitely headed out there, so they're sailing a worse angle to the wind than the boats further in, and they are giving distance away. The benefit's definitely now becoming closer and closer to the shore.
You can see them, we're on board with 21 here, heading themselves back into the shore, looking for that middle ground that we were talking about a second ago. You can't end up on the beach. You can see right in the background there.
They're in a really nice position, Oscar 21, in relationship to the rest of the fleet. They've got a lovely lift there, and they've gained, whilst you were talking, they made huge gains in the last 20-30 seconds.
And these are the boats further offshore, the northern boats that Matt was talking about, and you can see the difference in angle between 15 on the left of shot there and number 4 punching off further towards the right of screen. They're going to be sailing out into the tide, but also, as Matt says, a much worse angle compared to some of the boats inshore of them.
Yeah, it looks a bit more favourable out there. Someone deciding to come in on starboard.
15 looks like they're going for a big duck there.
Ooh,
big duck down behind 8. They make it, but look how much ground they lost to the boat behind them. They started up on their weather side, giving them a bit of dirty air, 103 right of picture, and after that big duck, they've lost all of that ground, and they're now to leeward.
Well, a big split then in the Bembridge Red Wing fleet.
I think 21 is going to be the boat to watch here. I think they made a big gain, as we said earlier on, but they went, I think, a little bit too far inshore and gave away some of those gains. But they are in a nice position. They got clear air. They can carry on port tack for quite some time if they want to, before they have to make any decisions about the rest of the fleet.
You can see the fleet as they duck and dive behind each other, trying to find a lane. You can see the mark on the left-hand side of the screen, this orange navigation mark. Look at the tide breaking on the front of it there, just as it went out of picture. So the tide is absolutely slooshing from right to left of shot, underneath the transoms of all these boats, pushing them upwind. Has an added effect here, which is that because the tide is pushing them upwind, they feel like there is more wind. They're experiencing more apparent wind on the boat, so it'll feel windier for them as they go up this beat. When they turn the corner to come back downwind, they're going to turn into all that negative tide. You can see that mark again going across the bottom of picture, and that's going to be a long afternoon's running for them, especially as these Red Wings don't have spinnakers. They're only used the jib boomed out.
Okay, time to come back to the start line, because we have our next class starting, and that is the Solent Sunbeam, the ones with V on their sail. Not so many of them that we can see. There's quite a few other classes out there, Victories and X1 designs, but the Solent Sunbeams are the ones we're looking at.
Nice colourful class, the Sunbeam, I believe.
Yes, not quite as colourful as the Seaview Mermaids.
True.
But yeah, you're right, there are quite a few colours out there. Here's their course. They're only going to Cowes Harbour, which is just past Egypt Point, over to the mainland, and then tacking their way back towards the finish.
It'll be interesting to see, because some of those legs we were just looking at, they don't quite look like they're going to be able to hold a spinnaker, so there'll be quite a lot of tactical choices there about whether to go low, short for a while with the spinnaker up, or whether to just two-sail reach it all the way across.
Well, there's one Sunbeam there, just hove to with the jib right in the middle of our screen.
And that was the start gun, which is an unusual choice to sit hove to. I've never seen that done before on a Cowes start. That hasn't really paid off for them, because all the other boats
Maisie, 64 at the top there, with 12 just down to their leeward, Argosy. And 36, Melody, making nice progress through the water.
Nice start for them.
26 is Danny on the foreground, with a bit clearer air, and that's paying off. A little bit luffing on the jib going on there.
Nicely powered up though. Looking to see the extra breeze out at that far end. That Mermaid getting all out of shape, being hove to at the start. Very odd. 26 here, looking like they're absolutely flying. Bottom left of picture.
Danny.
Really nicely up to speed. Nice angle. Looks like they're punching back into the shore. They're going to lead the fleet towards the island shore.
Don't have room, unfortunately, to tack yet onto port, so they are being pushed into the coast. 4 minutes to go for the next class starting. That will be the Victories.
Really nice. You can see them all bunched together, but 11 here that's in the middle of picture. In fact, looked like they were just about to tack. They are tacking. We're in a bit of a difficult situation here because they were getting all that dirty air off the two boats going to the left of picture and really had to tack over and clear their air. You can see again on the rib, middle of shot, that tide slooshing down the Solent, going from bottom to top of picture, taking all the boats out to the west.
Yes, indeed. Certainly heading westwards really quickly compared to yesterday and the day before. The tide really underneath them now, much later in the day, and that tide really strong. So that's where you need to be, in the middle of the Solent. Better breeze, better tide.
It's a very different race compared to what we've seen in the first 2 days of the Solent. We've been talking here constantly in the commentary position about needing to be on the beach to get the best of the tidal relief as the tide sweeps from right to left of screen, and today it's all opposite. Tide is underneath you. You want to be in the tide. You want to be swept upwind. It'll be the next leg as they come back downwind, where they'll all be desperately looking for shallow water, trying to get away from that negative tide.
The on the sail. Most of those boats live in Itchenor and Chichester Harbour. It's almost a Chichester class. The Sunbeams, beautiful they are too.
36 Melody just coming back across out of middle of picture here, I think. Just, yes, in the middle of shot here, but they've just got themselves behind boat number 12, you can see, and it's really going to be challenging for them to survive there. They're going to have to be pinching the whole time, staying as close to the wind as they can, and in fact you can see them there luffing the front edge of the mainsail, going inverted as they try and keep the bow to weather of number 12. So it's going to be hard for them to survive. They may end up taking another nibble into the island shore.
Whereas 65 just powering off to get out of the way.
65 going the other way. They're too close to number 12 and they don't want to live there, so they're bearing away looking for speed. Look at the tide on that navigation mark right in the middle of picture here, absolutely sweeping down the course, and you can see the boat on the right there just bringing the bow back up again to get back on the wind. Nice scenes as they all cross each other going up the island shore here, but stood off, as we said. It's staying in that positive tide behind them.
Seems that they're all pinching, you know, all luffing on the jib, you know, the backwinding going on the jib. They all seem to like pointing a little bit high.
They do, and you can see 70 right in the middle of picture here. Look at them sailing directly in the dirty air of the boat in front of them. So much to be lost. In fact, you can see them pointing lower, further away from the wind as they look for power because of all the dirt that's coming off the boat in front of them.
Okay, nearly a minute to go for the next class then. Let's come back to the start line, and this is the Squibs with the tan coloured sails.
Really recognisable, the Squibs with those bright red sails. Really easy to pick out of a start line, which is fantastic, but really hard to read sail numbers. Black sail numbers on dark red sails makes for a challenging commentary time.
It does. Matt, I think we get into trouble about calling them by different colours, don't they? It is a tan.
I was just thinking as you were saying it, it's so funny listening to you trying to describe the, with all due respect, Steve, trying to describe the colour of the sails, because I know what you're trying to avoid saying. You're trying to avoid saying brown, but they are brown, and I know we got into loads of trouble. I've got into loads of
You
trouble.
have, yes, you said it. It's a lovely shade of tan to me.
Well, you come and look at it from the angle that I'm looking at. They're brown sails, but it doesn't matter. They're just what they are.
Squibs.
Red, brown or tan, they're very iconic for the Squib class as they come up with 10 seconds to go.
I think we had rust as well in there somewhere.
Oh,
They really
God,
didn't
you're
like
real
that.
trouble now.
You can see them all being super conservative. 5 seconds to go. Most of the fleet still bearing away downwind. The gun goes. Look, all the helms switch the helm over.
Oh,
Still an individual recall with that tide under the fleet sweeping somebody over. I don't know if you can see who that was, Matt.
No, I'm just working my way back down. I can't. What I can see is that further out to the north of the pin end, quite a few, well, 3 boats completely misjudged that and got really badly caught out. Far too far away from the line. They're going to be way behind.
Lots of, in fact, we do have one squib returning now, just so you can see them middle left of picture, just going behind the X-boat front of shot here. Now they're going to try and get themselves back behind the line. It's going to be a really painful day to untangle yourself, because that tide is against. You've got to sail downwind against the tide before you can eventually try and catch up. And look at 95, middle of picture here. You can see it looks like almost the shroud is slack on the leeward side there. Might be a spinnaker Halley, can't quite tell. So nicely set up from them though, and they've got their bow forwards of 147. So nice position that they can live in as they sail in towards the island shore.
Okay, a little update as another gun goes off. 4 minutes for the next class, and Fiona can tell us about the wind. Has it made it all the way down to the Solent, the eastern Solent yet?
It hasn't, no, sadly. It's filled in nicely in the west and the central areas, but there is a hole out to the east, and it hasn't got down to the other Black Group boats. So they are upping sticks and moving a bit further west. They can see the breeze line, and we've been hoping that it was going to spread out nicely across them all, but they've got a hint of a south-southeaster over there. So yeah, they're upping sticks and moving to find this better breeze that we've got in these central western areas.
So it could be quite a long day for them.
It could be, yes. We've got those with either no engines or very small engines, so it's going to take the competitors a while to move as well, but they're obviously going to do their best to get the racing into the best breeze while they've still got some time.
Good, thank you, Fiona. A little update about the Black Groups down there in the east.
Just to jump in on our squib sail colour, I've just been prodded here on the squadron to tell me that the official colour of squib sails is mace. It is mace colour.
Mace?
Mace.
I thought that's something you hit someone over the head with.
It could be both. But they're going very nicely, the squibs here after their start. Smaller fleet, so quite a lot more separation than we've seen in some other classes, but nice. You can see the 2 boats paralleling each other as they sail up from back out to the deeper channel area of the Solent.
Well, I think, interestingly, if the results are to be based on physical effort, as in physical effort, the way you sort of sail it, then 835 must be right up there in the top ranking. They are hiking good and proper. That is going to hurt at the end of the day, but they have got this boat. I'm not sure who they are, but 835 are sailing this boat absolutely beautifully, and they're proper hiking. Tow straps nice and high, weight right out, boats nice and flat.
They'll be grateful that it's only a short beat for them then, because as you say, otherwise they're going to really feel that tomorrow morning. But great to see so much effort being ploughed into the squib fleet as they go upwind.
We're watching the blue-coloured hull Aquabat as they go in towards the island, and we're going to head back, I think, towards our next start, back in towards the start line, and we've got a lot of Seaview Mermaids now heading to the east as the squibs make their way to their windward mark. Not very far to go, actually, I suspect there.
It's a short beat for them. It is only just round the corner, just to the right of picture here, so they haven't got too far left before they can make their turn and head off across the Solent, but plenty of tactical choices for them left this afternoon.
Now we're going to the really colourful fleet, and this is the Seaview Mermaids.
Super colourful, but super low freeboard, and unfortunately having a couple of problems on day one with one boat taking on fractionally too much water. They decided as a class not to venture out into the 25 knots that we had yesterday, so making a cautious call for them, but should be a good race this afternoon for the Mermaid fleet.
And usually these boats, of course, owned by the club. You don't own the boat, you are a member of the club, and you get whatever boat you pull out of the hat at the end of the season, I think, for the next season.
Keeps it all fair though. No one ever can have a boat advantage because you just get whatever you get given, so really focusing on the quality of sailors rather than the equipment.
Yeah, well, the sails are all being flogged away to death there.
They are, and the fleet holding back here as we've seen, but not quite so much as the squibs. You can see they're all still pointing more to the left of picture as we look at it, so they're still getting swept from right to left by that tide. So it'll be interesting to see U6 middle of picture here, looking a little early as they come down. Be interesting to see on this. There's the line cam.
U4, Serena on the left.
Yeah, U8, the blue hull. In fact, blue hull middle of picture. That is our line cam on the start line there. They're in a bit of a pickle. They've got 4 seconds to go, and they could well be over here, even though they're bearing away. Individual recall probably was them, I think. They were still trying to get back behind the line. U8 It's really hurt them in that last 10 seconds. They didn't get up to speed. They were already over trying to claw their way back up tide.
Bluebell going nicely, but also U6 there, really an angle of heel on Rosemary.
U6 Rosemary leading the class after 2 days of racing, so they'll be very pleased. U6, U7 and U9, so all low numbers doing well so far this week in the Sunbeams.
Great shot overhead the CV Mermaid Fleet.
Quite bunched together, and see someone's having a problem at the top of the fleet there, right at the top of the picture. I can't quite see. Maybe they're trying to find
11.
a hole to go back. So it's 11 trying to turn around.
Miranda.
And look how much that's hurt them. Look how far they've had to sail before they could find a gap to now go back right at the top of the picture, bearing away.
Here is U6 Rosemary.
Really nicely set up. They've got a nice lane there. They're bow forward of the boat to weather of them, so they can live there quite comfortably as they sail back in towards the island shore.
Yeah, just pinching a little bit. You can see the front of the jib just backwinding, luffing as it's called. And the boat to windward of them, which must be Bluebell, U8, with that blue hull.
U5 just tacking off, first of the starboard support tackers, going back out into the deeper water of the channel. And you start to see, look at the lift, top left of screen. The boat closest to the shore, they're getting a big right-hander as they lift up towards the other boats. And the downside for them is, as they tack over, that lift is going to turn into a big header, and it's going to force them back out into the deeper water, which they do want, but it's going to cost them in height compared to all the other boats.
Yep. And enjoying the racing though, lovely conditions here.
Now, unfortunately, in the middle of shot here, this yellow boat that we're looking at has tacked in a rather unfortunate place because the wind coming off that boat just to windward of them is going to be spilling down onto their sails. It's not smooth, fresh wind. It's going to be all turbulent as it comes off the back. So they're going to struggle to live there. It's an interesting choice. They must have been bounced off or felt like they were better off. And look at the difference in angle now. They have to bear away and sail so much lower, looking for fresh air.
And boat speed.
You have to try and get ahead. In fact, no, it looks like they're going to tack themselves over. They couldn't live in that position. Maybe. They're thinking about it. Bottom left of screen, they've got the jib backed.
Oh.
Not quite sure what's happened there. Looks like maybe they've got a little problem they're trying to sort out. So interesting as we look at this drone shot. We've got 5, 6 boats up on the island shore, and then 2 or 3 boats pushing themselves out in deeper tide. So it'll be interesting to see as the race unfolds who gets the best of the tide and the best of the wind there. Again, you can see, look at the difference between these 2 boats. We were on board with the yellow a minute ago when I was talking about how they were in dirty air, and the blue boat now on the right-hand side of shot, they were the ones giving them the dirty air, and look at the margin that's opened up between those 2 boats. Huge gains for the blue boat in front, and the yellow boat now in dirty air from the boat just to weather of them ahead. Again, you can just see them poking out from behind the mainsail, so still in not ideal sailing conditions. They haven't found their lane yet. They're going to get behind U5 as they come across on starboard, so they're not going to get bumped, thankfully, but they don't look particularly settled here in the middle of the pack.
No, but very tight, close racing. I'm sure they all know each other very well. Get together in the bar afterwards to discuss the day's racing.
Looking at U1 here, punching back out into the deep water of the Solent. Still probably looking for power. Don't forget the tide's behind them, so the apparent wind over the deck, or it's going to feel windier as they go up this first beat. U9 Sheen here going the yellow boat, right to left. Again, a little bit stuck under U10 here. They're being forced to sail a bit lower, a bit faster as we go back to the Victory start now.
Yep, back to the Victories. That's the black hull of the Victories. And they have the Z on their sail to identify them. You're looking from the shore.
Victory's really going to be susceptible to that strong running tide. They are going to be swept down. You can see a few of them already trying to stay deep, stay low. Not that many boats poking their noses up. 70 here, still trying to deep power on the right of shot. Still got that jib flogging, trying to take some of the speed off.
20 seconds to go. 74 is going to get a bit close to that line.
I think 74 is going to be early here. In fact, you can see them bearing away. They think they might be early as well.
Zinnia, that's a top boat, 69, having to bear away quite hard. So is 80. Shearwater 2.
Shearwater 2 class leader, so we expect them to be in a good position, but it looks like they're bang on if they're going to be there at all. Individual
recall.
The theme of the day is the individual recall today. Boat 70 definitely
yes.
over, unfortunately for them.
Unity.
Now they've got a bit of a pickle because they're out front. So how are they going to get back? They're going to have to either bear away in front of everybody. They must know they're over. There's at least a boat length between them and the rest of the fleet.
Yeah, just trying to find a bit of room there is Unity. And
They need to pull the helm up and get back as quickly as possible because that tide is going to be against them as they try and return to the line. So it's going to take them a long time to get back and get themselves restarted.
yeah, the Victories. Again, all pinching up a little bit, just trying to stay above, and some can't live there. 77 tacks away onto port. Thinks they can make their way through and thread through the starboard tackers.
Now I'm not convinced these
70 as well.
boats coming back. In fact, yes, they've just made their turn in the middle of the picture there. You can just see them heading back, but that's a long time after the gun to finally make your turn. That's going to take them at least 2 minutes to get back to the start line. So by then, everyone else will have been swept on the tide, and they're going to have a long afternoon of battling back up the pack.
I bet the helmsman calling for a spinnaker there.
I mean, it's far enough down from the start line that you almost could hoist and go back because they will be against the tide.
There's actually a long way. It's going to take them forever.
It's going to be really hard for them to get back into the fight here as we go with 78. As they're beating up wind, you can see them. Nice lane here. They've got enough room between them and the boat at the top of shot here that they can afford to bear away, look for a bit of power if they need it. So nicely settled. You can see the helmsman pulling the tiller towards him, bringing the bow down, looking for that power as they punch through these building waves as the tide goes out.
There's Pelican, number 77 in the Victory class.
You can see them slamming. Look at the waves, the wash coming off the bow here as they jump into this building chop as the Western Solent.
Quite slack on their sails, aren't they?
I think they run with quite low rig tension this class. They've not got high performance masts, high performance hulls, so you can't crank everything on quite as hard as you might. A more classic look, you could say.
Yep, high performance bilge pump, that's for sure.
Yes, they're going to have a wet afternoon in the Western Solent, but it should be a lovely run for them again back down the mainland shore this afternoon.
There seems to be two schools of thought in this fleet. Those that, and we have seen this before, but it's more relevant now. We see a school of thought that says go to the north and head out there in the clear air and take your chances out there, and those that say head towards the shore and tack over, go in towards the island shore before then tacking over on port. I would suggest, having now motored around the entire course area several times, that the clue is actually in the sea state that they're looking at upwind. And if you're looking at the water, there's an awful lot more white caps and choppy water closer to the island, not tight in, but closer in. When you look further offshore, the sea is a lot flatter. I've just motored back around that way to go and have a look at it. It's much flatter, which suggests that there isn't anywhere near as much tide pushing you down to the west. That is, in my opinion, that is not the place to be. The place to be is where 54, and I've forgotten who the other one was now, but 54 is in a very nice position, pretty much in line with the Gurnard buoy, and I think they are going to be quite a long way in front of the fleet when the fleet come back together.
Okay, we're going to come back to the start line because we're away for the biggest fleet here. The last start on the line here, the X1 designs, and they are all running downwind to stay up tide of the start line, and unusually a lot of them are coming down towards the squadron to make their start. I'd say half the fleet perhaps, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would say so, and this is going to be one of the slower boats to go upwind today, so they're really going to have to work hard in this pre-start to stay up tide of the start line, because if they are over, it's going to take them an age to untangle themselves. So this is going to be a case of better safe than sorry, because you're going to lose more by being over than you are possibly going to gain by actually being bang on the line.
Well, the ones that were heading towards the squadron are now heading back out into the middle of the Solent. Not so many. Number 3.
Sorry,
yes,
Steve. I was going to say, just to follow on from what Oscar was saying, I think the other thing to bear in mind, and this class will be bearing in mind, is it's such a big fleet that actually clear air is never more important than in the XOD fleet. If you haven't got clear air, you've got real trouble. It goes for anybody, but because there's so many boats, I think we're going to find that there are going to be people prepared to start wherever they have to start. They're going to not worry too much about the bias on the line, so long as they can get some clear air, and then they'll sort it out from there. So the strategy and tactics in a fleet of this size is very different to what we've just seen in the Victories, for example.
Yeah, well, they're spread out up and down the line. Of course, we've got the luxury of a 10-minute time rather than 5 minutes. So that's the 5-minute gun for the X1 designs. Number 31 came close to us. But their course, unusually, it's going to take them all the way down to towards Yarmouth, or certainly down halfway down to Newtown Creek, and then back to Gurnard Ledge and Royal Cork. So they're stuck to the coast here, and they'll have a finish on the squadron line.
And just as you were saying, Matt, there's another big fleet tactic that we're going to see here, which is you don't ever have to win a race to win the X-Boat class at Cowspeak. There's 45 boats. If you can keep yourself in the top 10 for the whole week, you stand a really good chance of doing well overall. So this is going to be very much about minimizing any potential bad results as much as winning a class.
Excitation, boat number 50 on our screen with a light bluey-green hull, quite close to the squadron.
4 minutes to go here. So you can see the fleet in the background here, running downwind, staying up tide. No one is going to want to be anywhere near it with 3 minutes to go, because if you are, well, you're too early.
And the tide really is. I've just come up to the pin end of the line, and the tide is absolutely hosing out now. So we've got 2 knots or more at the end of this line. So as you say, Oscar, you just don't want to be anywhere near it. It's better to be, I'd argue, it's better to be late than too early by quite a long way, because you're just, as we saw in the last start, even in a small fleet, if you get stuck up above a couple of boats, it can be really difficult to try and get back. And in this fleet, that's a very high risk because there's just so many boats.
You could easily get stuck above 30 boats and not have a lane for a good few minutes, which is really going to hurt. Looking at them here, all running, you can see them gesticulating back behind them to look for the line, which end they want.
The other thing, I'm just motoring up to there. I'm right on the end of the line right now, and that buoy has moved, that outer distance buoy has moved further to the west, as you would expect, because the tide has got stronger. But that, in XOD boat lengths terms, is a good 4 boat lengths at least, possibly even more.
Yep, looks even more than that from where we can see, Matt, but they're holding well back at the moment. Just a few more over the entrance of the Medina as they try and stay short of the line. Now it's all down to timing, isn't it? When do you turn? With 2.5 minutes to go.
It is, and I would say with the fleet holding so far to the right, so up tide at the start line, that we'll start to see them setting up a little earlier than we did with the Squibs and a few of the other classes just shortly. They've got a bit more run into the start, so they've only got that tide. You'll see the jibs flapping, but I think we'll start to see the semblance of a lineup coming here with about 45 seconds to go. At that point, they'll all try and choose their lanes. As Matt said, clear air is going to be everything here, even more so than exactly where you start on the start line. So they're going to be quite careful about trying to create a hole above and below themselves, if they can, to give themselves the most options as this start unfolds. 2 minutes to go.
Yes, 2 minutes to go. Big spread in the fleet. There's few that are at Medina, kind of like heading towards the lemming effect of being, I don't want to be too far away from my competitors, so I'm going to get back into the mix. Is where they're heading.
Interestingly, unlike some of the other classes that we've seen where we've had people chancing it from further out off the end of the line, the entire fleet in the XOD fleet is set way back. No one is looking to do that last minute dash around the pin end at all. They've all figured out that that is really just not worth it.
Well, there's 2 or 3 boats though that are going to perhaps try that brave port tack, or just cold water on the rest of the fleet and tack, but how far does that stretch out to into the Solent?
You can see the boats now all working their way down from right to left of picture. They're getting down. No one wants to be above the pin end mark, because you can just be squeezed out by any boats to leeward. So everybody, as we come up to 1 minute to go, looking to try and establish themselves somewhere in the fleet that they can't easily be pushed out from. 78 in the middle, everybody got their sails flapping, trying desperately to slow down and not get too close. Even then, there's a few boats just out on the left side here that I would say are edging on being early with 45 seconds to go. Tide is still absolutely sweeping the fleet from right to left. You can see the masts being pushed, the whole boat's moving sideways compared to the land behind them.
Yeah, it's committed to be right on Matt's hip there to keep an eye out for the far end to call out any boats that might be over.
And you can just see Matt top left of picture here. He's basically on the end of where the line actually is. It isn't that buoy, don't forget. He's the flags in the middle of the course here.
Well, they've made the decision, look, they've all turned towards it, sails flapping madly, all the jibs flapping like anything. It must be very noisy out there. They're still having to hold back.
But with 12 seconds to go, they are incredibly close. These 2 leaders middle of picture, I would say they are very close to being over the line, and I think we'll see an individual recall here. almost certainly will, I think.
Oh, I'm sure it will be.
Individual recall, there it is, theme for the day.
Well, it's good that it's an individual rather than a general.
But a nice start from the rest of the fleet. 50 here, bottom of shot. Nice clean air. Look at them punching out. in front of the
Excitation.
fleet. Excitation doing a beautiful job there. Clean start for them. Didn't get involved in all that carnage happening at the pin end.
Well, talking of the pin end, the two boats that got the best start at the pin end was 67 and Willie McNeil in 123 in Lara. They both got really nice pin end starts. However, 67, to my unofficial eye, was way over the line. And Willie in 123, not so sure. It was pretty close. If he can pull that off, though, that'll be good, because they're in a very nice position on 123 at the moment, because they've got clear air and a nice long run in towards the beach, and they can just make sure that they keep clear air all the way up this beach.
We can see in the left of picture there, boats starting to try and make their way back out from the shore as 67 here, centre of picture, starts to tack over. They've gone as close to the beach as they want. They don't want to get out of that positive tide behind them, looking for that fine line between pressure and tide as they come around this corner. And they've got to spend their whole afternoon here tucked in close to the island shore, all their beats and runs happening up and down the island shore. So a bit of a challenging tidal afternoon and wind afternoon for them, because not going to be a huge amount of tidal relief in the runs. Great shots of the fleet here. Most of the fleet now on port tack, heading back out into the Solent, looking for that deep water. You can see the rib on the right of picture there, lying, pointing to the right, the tide sweeping it from right to left of picture as we look. 51 coming down, being the last of the tackers from the starboard tack in towards the beach. They're quite close to the beach now, so you're going to start to see them thinking about tacking over. They've got a lane, they can tack here, and it looks like they're going into it just at the bottom left of the photo now.
What a wonderful Cowes weak site it is, all these X1 designs, as we fly over from with the drone, looking at all of these 50-odd boats.
Just out towards the further to the north, 67 is having a whale of a time tacking upwind in nice, just through some really big waves there, but otherwise having a whale of a time in clear air, dictating their own race. Unfortunately, I really don't think, I think they're going to be in for some disappointment when they get in later on. But I think that Willie McNeil in 123, I'm just trying, yep, I can see where he is now. He went in pretty much into within about 100 metres of the beach and tacked over. Oh, some big waves coming out here, crikey. Tacked in towards the beach, and I'd say he's in a very nice position indeed. Over there, so some huge waves. Thank you very much, Mr. Powerboat.
They're going to be really affected by chop and by powerboat waves, the X-boats. Quite blunt bows and very wet as the afternoon goes on, so hopefully they're not going to get too bounced around as they come back out past Egypt Point as the tide turns and strengthens against this building breeze.
I think we're seeing another example of what we talked about earlier on, Oscar, about the fact that if you can get into that clear air and get away, you are away, and if you get buried in the pack, you are just going to be stuck there for a while, because there's the bulk of the pack that is going down the green at the moment are messing each other up, I'm afraid. They've got dirty air in amongst them. They're all fighting very hard to get out of it, but meanwhile, Willie McNeil in Lara in 123, the very distinctive golden hulled boat, is just romping away with it. He's just got a superb start, kept clear air, and has just been going at full speed in pretty flat water actually compared to what happened further out to the north, and he's had a hell of a start.
We can just see just what you were talking about there. Top middle of picture here is the fleet messing each other around as they force each other back in towards the beach and then back out for water and back in on starboard. And as you say, costing them huge amounts of time compared to these boats who are just having a clean run offshore.
165 just passing overhead. Drone shot. Tortoise.
Tortoise doing well. Had a good start to the regatta actually. Tortoise, I think won yesterday. So we're pleased with that. Tortoise, there is no hare, unfortunately, in this fleet. I was hoping there would be a boat, Tortoise versus the hare, but not to be. And you can see them there, the headland that they're going to work their way round. So their top mark is going to be somewhere just round the next headland. It's not in that next bay, it's just round the next one. So they've got a nice little...
What's their mark, Oscar?
I don't have it written in front of me, I'm afraid.
Okay.
But here you can see them beating up.
Ooh.
Some good crosses at main ease there as they duck round the back of 157.
Rosanna. And 31, Frivol.
And you can see the chop starting to build now. 157 sailing themselves underneath Victory here. Is that Victory, I believe? Yes. Now they're going to be... Oh, there's another X-boat, ignore me. So sailing underneath. So they're sailing into the dirty air of the boat to weather them, and then pinning themselves to the shore. So they're going to have a bit of a time getting out of there.
Ooh, mind that mark. Ooh, that's
This
a bit
could
close.
be a collision. Oh, that was close. Very close.
Had to big bear away there.
Almost pulling the handbrake turn, trying to get away from that mark. And that's the strength of the tides in the Solent, sweeping the fleet out to the west.
Estelle having to bear away and miss those marks. Really strong tide now, hence the chop that Matt was talking about.
You can see, look at the Sea State building as they battle their way out upwind, out into the western Solent.
Right, well, I think that is our end of our start sequences off of the squadron here, Oscar. And, it's taken a while, but we got the racing underway. Lovely breezes. I hope that the Black Group get their starts underway. I know, as Fiona was saying, they're bringing the committee boat up wind a bit towards us here at Cowes. And, of course, now the whole of the Solent in front of Cowes is just cleared. No boats anywhere other than the guard ship and the pilot ship and harbour master from Southampton. So we're going to wrap up and we'll be back tomorrow. Don't forget, of course, it's to watch out on YouTube for our Cowes update and review of the day today at Cowes with Matt and myself. Oscar Mead will be back here tomorrow morning for the 10 o'clock show.
Yes, indeed. See you all tomorrow.
That's it. Have a good evening.